Hello, Donna here. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to make these beautiful envelope pockets for journals. What we'll end up with is a flat pocket made from a recycled junk mail envelope, and you glue it in your page like this. We're not going to use both sides of the envelope. We're just going to use one piece, and what that does is reduces bulk, and you get that lovely crinkly sound that we all love. And we're going to cover it and then just glue that one sheet with the window in it into or onto your journal page. Now I'm going to show you what I've used today using everyday kitchen paper. This one here is deli paper. I get my deli paper from Amazon. It comes in a 12 by 12 sheet and you get tons and tons and tons of it. So I love using this paper. I grab it all the time. I stencil on it, I distress it, I tea dye it, you name it. I use it a lot. If you don't have access to the deli paper, just use the kitchen variety baking paper. In Australia, we get Glad bake and cooking paper, or you can get the cheaper version. I use this to go underneath my coffee dyeing or tea dyeing when I'm working on my envelopes. So if I was going to grab an envelope and tea stain it, I'd put this underneath, and then when it gets all grungy like this, I reuse it. This one here, I've just decoupaged a napkin or a serviette. In Australia, we call them serviettes. I've decoupaged that onto the envelope sheet. Let's talk about the envelopes. I keep a lot of my envelopes in a box. Once I've filled this box, which it's now full, I don't keep any more. There's no need. There's plenty here to keep me going for a while. So I just get my envelopes, and once they're opened, I just store them in this box here. What I do to open my envelopes is I use an envelope opener. So instead of getting my finger to open the envelope or, tearing it like that, I use an envelope opener. So you just get that in there and open it like that. That enables you to recycle your envelope without damaging it. So all you do, if you haven't got one of these, just get a knife out of your kitchen and put it down there and open it up so you can recycle your envelope. Now to prepare the envelope, go through your envelopes and pick out an envelope with a minimal amount of printing on it. If you've got an envelope with no printing on it, even better. So I've gone through and I've picked out the envelopes that I want to use, and I'm going to just put a very light cover over the top of this printing. And that's so that when I put my deli paper or my baking paper over the top, that the print is not going to show through. You can use white acrylic paint and you can use gesso primer. I reach for the gesso primer because that's what it's for. It's meant to cover things up. But if you haven't got gesso, just use white acrylic paint. Don't add water to it, just use it straight out of the jar. So what I do is, if I'm going to do more than one, I just lay them out and I'll put one thin coat on that one, then that one, then that one, then that one, and then come back and do a second coat. By the time I've gone to here and set them aside for a minute or two, they're dry. It doesn't take long at all. So I'll get my gesso, get a small amount of gesso or paint, and just put a thin coverage on that. See how thin that is? I'm hardly putting any on it at all. You can see I haven't loaded my brush up too much. Thin coverage, and that's so that it helps to minimize the wrinkling, because this is water-based. It's a water-based product, and so is the white paint. All right, so once that's dry, we then put a second coat on. It's nowhere near dry, but I'm pretending. All right, so then I'll just leave that aside. The next step is grab your ruler, and on each end of this envelope, we're just going to slice off a slither. What that's going to do is open up the envelope so it lies flat. All right. Now you can do two things here. This is the position I want to use this for my pocket, right? You can cut it right on that fold line there and make that the size of your pocket, or you can open it up and make it a bit wider. So there's your fold line, and you can make it, say, 1/2 inch wider than that fold line. So that gives you a little bit more room here to make a wider page, and that's what I've done with this one. So it's still a single layer of envelope, but I've just got my fold line there and made it a bit wider. This size is good if you're doing a full-size journal, a larger journal. So all I do is I'll make a few of these up and I'll put them aside, because I don't know what journal I'm going to put this in yet. But I am making a larger Edith Holden style journal, so I'll put this aside, and when it comes time for me to put it in the journal, I then just get it and rip it down and make it a bit smaller, or this way, whatever I need to do, and then I embellish it. The next one we'll make a bit smaller, cutting off the same again at the ends. Open it up. This time I'm going to cut it right down that fold line. You need to bring your journal back in and work out how big you want it. So if I was to put that there, it's going to hang over that much. It's too big. All right, so I know I want to cut it off this side. I'm not going to cut it off this side because that panel there will be too small. So I'm going to shimmy it over to there, and if I just grab a pencil, I know I can cut it off about there. Now for my height, I just work out that I can cut it off about there. Sometimes you don't even need to put the paint over some of the areas, and that's going to fit on that page. You don't want it exactly the same size as your page. Always make it that 1/4 inch smaller all the way around, because we're going to rough it up a little bit like this one. See how the deli paper on top, or tissue, whatever you're using, it could be scrapbook paper, and when you sit that back on, it just gives it that nice rustic look, and that becomes your pocket. So by using the same size envelope, we've now got 2 entirely different size envelopes, or to be envelope pockets for journals. I'm just going to get some deli paper and some baking paper and show you how I cover these envelope fronts. Now, if you don't have any scraps that you've made along your journey of making anything at all for your journals, just create them from scratch. So I'm going to show you how to create something like this on your deli paper, and I've just used stencils. If you don't have any stencils, you can get a piece of cardboard. This is cardboard, the negative that's been left over from my scan and cut machine. So if you've got a scan and cut machine and you've been cutting things out, you can just use that, and you can see the imprint that has given me on this one here, and I've put them upside down. You can put them any way you like. You know, just get anything that you've got laying around, you know, a lid or anything at all that you could use to get some colour down on your paper. I'm going to be using my makeup brushes. So if you haven't seen these makeup brushes, these are perfect for stenciling because they give me a nice light colour on this deli paper and I can control it. So I can go from light to dark. So the pattern that I'm going to use for this one is, I think I'll use something like this. I don't want this to have too much on it because it is so grungy and yummy. So I think I might go for a rust colour because that's, you know, like pretty good. So this is called Rusty Hinge. And I'm going to use my makeup brush because the makeup brush allows me to get in and around all of these flowers, whereas the sponge will catch a lot more in all of these little ridges. Let's try Festive Berries and see what colour I get with that. That's a bit better. I'm going pink and brown. I'm going to go dark in the middle and I'm going to be really random here. And I'm going to take a peek at where that's going. See there, I'm not doing anything real neat. I'm letting it go quite random. Then I'm coming off my stencil here and I'm going to just get some colour anywhere on this paper where it'll take the colour, just with what's left over on my brush. So you can see some pattern and here, no pattern at all, just colour. So I can get some more colour on here and go, well, okay, right in these white bits, I don't want any pattern, I just want some bold colour. You can see a bit of the coffee breaking off on there too. All right, so now I've got to decide whether I want to bring in another colour or do I just keep going on here. It's meant to be random, it's not meant to be organised. We don't want to become organised. So I might try this flower here, get a little bit of it here, and I'm coming off it again and getting some of this pink colour over here. And I'm just going to see if I can get some really dark pink now, get in there and really get a pop of colour. You can now come over and put this here so you can see how impressive it looks. I've got my dark bit of coffee there, I've got a flower up in the corner, I've got some bright festive berry pink here, and it's all looking really good. I've got a lot of the coffee colour happening all over the place. I'm just going to brush this coffee off. I use a paintbrush for a broom, for my craft broom. That's all it is, a big paintbrush. I can move it over that way if I want more. I can move it over that way if I want less. Then I can see if I want to add any more. So I might just put a little bit more soft pink on that white area there. And I reckon that's done. I don't want to do any more to that. I'm happy to use what I've done to this for this particular envelope pocket. All right. I've also got a Tim Holtz coffee splatters. This one is Tim. It's got THS009 is the number of this one. I could always put a coffee stain on here as well, but I think this is quite enough for this one. I'm going to go ahead now and do a similar one, but on the deli paper. So where I'm taking the ink off my brush and cleaning my brush up, I've now made myself a nice coloured scrap piece of paper to use. The deli paper has a bit of a shiny side and a matte side. Use the matte side for stenciling. You can pick a stencil if you like. You can do what I've done here with this one and do random messy stuff all over it, whatever you want to do, because you can see how good this looks here. It will look just as good on the deli paper. You can put fake splatters all over it. I've got a few different stencils here just to give you a bit of an idea what you could use and what would look good. Butterflies would look great. So we might use some butterflies and some coffee splatter and some of this. And I'm going to do that in a vintage photo. Again, dark to light. I'm going to do one butterfly and have a look at how much I need to do this to make it look reasonably natural. Because I'm going to get a couple of envelopes out of this whole sheet. There's enough here to do a few. I'm not doing these butterflies evenly. I'm pressing heavy on the edge of that wing, heavy on the edge of that wing, heavy at the bottom, and then lightly joining it up in the middle. See there? Heavy on the edge, and then lightly in the middle. Light on there and there. Now I'm going to move it around so it doesn't look so placed. I'm going to see if the rust will work this time. All right, let's just load up the brush. Got the stencil on here, heavy in the middle, heavy to the edge, load up again, and then come out off the stencil and keep going. I'm just going to keep going and then blend that colour out. A little bit of pink is coming off with it, which is okay by me because I'm getting pink and rust all at the same time. And then I'm just going to keep on coming out and getting colour off that page. See how I've had a happy accident there? I've got pink and rust all in one go. So changing up your stencils is a really good idea. So let's get some coffee splatter on here now. And we'll use some tea dye. And heavy in the middle and then lighter to the edge. That'll give me a more convincing looking stain. See how it's heavier there and then goes lighter? If I'd done that all even, it's not going to look so real a stain. Load up again. And mind you, my ink pad is almost dry. If that was really wet, you'd get a totally different effect. So I'm going to get some splatter over here, dark on the edge, and come back light. I use this technique a lot. Now I'm going to load up my brush, no stencil, and I'm just going to get that light bit there and get it to blend into the butterflies a bit. You can see here how you can't see where that splatter begins and ends. So just try a few different ways of blending. You can just get your brush and just pat it on like that, you know, without doing anything else, and just put a few stains here and there. Be a bit random like that, and all you'll get is, you know, a hit and a miss. So you just keep on doing that until you're done all over. Okay, now I'm going to blend some darker pink. I'm going to take some of this pink off my brush because I don't want it too dark. I want it to be subtle. So I'm going to go like that and then blend some of that pink up. Now I want some really hot spots of pink. So I'm going to control it. Hot spots here and there, but I'm going to control it. Move that away so I can see where they're going to turn up. You can see where the hot spots are starting to turn up now. You can do the same with pink and with the rust. So be very controlled with that. You know where you want that to be. So that when you put your envelope under there, you choose where you're going to rip that off. See here how it's all starting to come together? I think I can work with that, and that's going to get me 2 lovely envelopes. Now, so I don't accidentally pick this up on my next project, I'll just get some paper towel and make sure all that pink is off here, because if I was working on green next and I wanted to really control my colors and I don't use these brushes for a couple of weeks, the last thing I want to do is pick that brush up and then have it turn around and give me a muddy color. So clean your brushes before you put them away. Now to finish up, all we're going to do is tear up our little covers and pop them on our prepared envelope fronts. Doesn't take very long. The longest part is if you haven't got any scrap paper and you have to start from scratch and make your own. All right, so once you figure out where you want your paper to go on the front of your pocket, I'm just going to put a faint pencil mark. I'm going to put some dots right across the top here, just very faint. And then I'm going to turn my work around and see those dots. I'm just going to rip down the paper on those dots. Now this is just a guide for you. You don't have to do the dots if you don't want to. This part is where you sort of have to maneuver your paper. The longer the paper it is, the more difficult this rip is to do. And I know that that is going to be the top of my envelope. All right, so you do need to take off the pencil marks and rub away from the edge. If you try and rub backwards and forwards like you normally use a rubber, you're going to wreck your paper. Now I need to work out, I want my flower to go there and I want my blob to go there. So I only need a little tiny bit of overhang here. So I'm going to come just 1/8 of an inch down again by that edge of the envelope. And I'm going to tear down that line. If you're confident in eyeballing that, just go ahead and eyeball it. That's all I do. But I'm just drawing this line just to show you that you can give yourself a guide. Okay, so you just want that rip a little messy and close to the edge. Do the same again. A little pencil line, just 1/8 of an inch. You don't want to go too wide because this has been measured to fit on your page. Now to get the pocket to show the window, you just need to sit your cover on top. Because you can see your window through, just trace around. Trace around, don't make it too dark. I'm not sure what size pencil you've got or what sort of paper you're going to use, but you need to be able to rub this line out when you're finished. And just cross-check that you've got no white bits of your envelope showing. You don't need to tea stain your envelope before you do this procedure either. All right, so now we've got our window drawn. What we're going to do is we're going to cut it out, but we're not going to cut it out right on the line. I want to show you something here. We're going to cut it out ever so slightly to the inside of that line. So I'm going to start cutting here. So the whole line, you're still going to see it. So I'm not cutting on the line. And that way, when I put this back on my cover here, my pocket, you're not going to see the edge of this window. So when I cut that out, you'll see that the whole line is still, let me show you here. You'll see that the whole line is still on my paper, and then I'm going to rub that out. You can use your little scrap to make a cluster. See here how cutting that out, just that little bit on the inside has made that window. You can't see any of the white like that. If you cut it out on that line, you're going to see that white window area. You don't want to see that. So I'm using Barely Art glue. This is a good glue. It's quite strong and it dries clear. Don't overuse your glue. It's going to squish out everywhere and you don't need to. So I just do a straight line straight down the edge of the envelope, all the way around the edge. Then I do a thin line around the window, and you can see that I'm also just staying away from the edge a little bit. Then I'm going to come back and I'm going to line this up by lining up the window. Then I'm going to make sure that none of my white edges are showing, because that's the way it was ripped out, so none of the white edges will show. This glue grabs real quick, by the way. Straighten down your window area first and then pull it out to the edges. You don't need glue all over the whole piece. So that is now ready to be glued in as a pocket. All right, I'm going to have the pocket facing this way, so I'm going to glue it across the top, down the side, and across the bottom, just one line. I'll put it in place. Don't want it too close to the seam of your journal where your stitches are. Flatten that down. Let that dry properly before you go loading up your pocket. Look at that. Isn't it just beautiful? Beautiful and grungy. Right now, also, if you wanted to come along and do some more work to this, you very well could. This is just a base. You could call this done. And what you see through the pocket is what you're going to use as your focal point. So rather than me show you this one, it's exactly the same thing. All you do is rip it down to the size of your piece of paper. That is much bigger than my journal. But say I've made it up to this stage and I want to use this in this journal. I just work out where I want it, so there and there, and then I come back and I'll just start tearing. I'm not going to tear this one because I can use it in a bigger journal, but you get what I mean. You've got your bottom here and you get it there. You've pre-made them and you just rip that down there and you rip it down there, and then that would be ready to go in here at that size. All right, so you can just make a few up if you like, or you can just put them away like that and make them up when your journal is ready to go. Same applies for doing the decoupage. You put it on exactly the same way, only you're covering it with the Mod Podge and putting your entire image over the whole lot. And I just put some water on here and cut out the window. Well, these pockets are a great way to reduce bulk. They're lovely and crinkly. You still get all that beautiful paper. Now load it up And use up your deli paper because you get about 100 sheets in a pack. I'll put the link to where I got mine in the description below. And this is an American Amazon link. I'm sorry if you Australian ladies can't get yourself some of this here. I did get mine from USA. I'm Donna. Thanks for watching and bye for now.